Hello to all of you wonderful moms out there. Welcome to Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life. I'm your host, Anoki Kapasi, and I'm here to help you envision and plan and take action on your big ideas so that you can create that impact that you really want to have at home and at work. This is episode 79, and it's also the first of a 4-part Systems Explained series. And I'm really excited that you're tuning in today because if you've ever felt like you're always busy but not really moving the needle on anything, this episode is going to be really helpful for you. And this whole series actually stems from a client question. My client asked me how she could design her life so that she doesn't always have to be on, quote unquote, for either her family's needs or her business's needs. You know that feeling when you look back and you realize that you've been in go mode this whole time. You haven't used that off button in so long, you can't even find that button anymore. I know you've been pushing it so hard and not stopping at all to even come up for air. I mean, you're probably ending each night with a bunch of half-finished tasks. And I know that because that was me for a really long time. And when that happens, I'm sure you're wondering where all of your time and energy keeps going. Why do you keep ending up with all of these unfinished tasks? And honestly, in my case, the breakthrough wasn't more hustle. It wasn't waking up earlier or pushing myself even harder just so I could get everything done on time. It was actually something much simpler. I started creating systems that reduced my mental load, and it made my progress so much more predictable. So today I'm going to share my personal journey, and I want to give you the clearest definition of systems so you can see how systems are going to help you bridge that ideal life that you want and make it become your real life. Because systems aren't just for businesses or tech companies, they can actually be secret weapons even for us moms, especially when we want to make steady progress on the things that matter the most. So grab your coffee, find a quiet spot if you can. I know sometimes that feels impossible, and let's dive in. Are you looking for a way to blend success and motherhood without losing sight of who you are? I get it. I've been there too. Hi, I'm Anoki, a PhD researcher, business owner, and homeschooling mom of 2 boys. As your life coach, I help moms like you create a life you love at home and at work. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed, overscheduled, and overlooked, and want a clear roadmap to a balanced life, a meaningful career, and finally feeling like yourself again while being the awesome mama that you are, you're in the right place. In this journey to create the life you truly desire, it's time to rediscover your dreams and achieve your ambitious mom life. I'm so excited you're tuning into today's episode. If this is your first time here, well, welcome. Hit the follow button so you don't miss future episodes. And if you like what you're hearing, then visit my website at solveformom.com and access free resources, get in touch with me directly, or learn more about how I can help you. So a couple of years ago, I was juggling part-time work in the margins of my day. I took care of my boys who at the time were really young and they needed quite a bit of attention. I was also setting up a new home. We had just moved into our very first house and I was still trying to carve out some time for my own personal growth. I love my kids, of course, but I also wanted to do things, big things in the world, not just in my home. I wanted to help people outside of the 4 walls of my home. So in my heart, I still had those hopes and dreams of creating impact. But this is what my days looked like. At that time, I would wake up and I already felt behind. I was behind. I'd be rushing through my morning routines. I would switch rapidly between playing with my kids and teaching them little things here and there, and then scooting towards the computer and trying to sneak in a couple of client emails. And I just felt like my whole day was really disjointed and that I constantly had to pick up where I left off on projects. Then I would end each day feeling like I'd been really busy all day and that every single minute had been taken up. But when I really sat down and tried to take stock of things, I didn't feel like I'd moved forward on anything really meaningful. Not in my home, and let alone not in the larger world. So there's actually this research study that shows that the average adult makes about 35,000 decisions every day. Well, I'm sure that number is going to be even higher, or at least feel higher for moms. We're constantly thinking about things like, what should the kids eat for breakfast? Should I start with my emails or that project? Can I fit in exercise? Did I respond to that message? The mental load just is overwhelming, and that's how it felt like for me back then. It's all of that decision fatigue that really gets us, right? So my attention and energy was constantly switching between the tasks that I had to work on and the people I was trying to help, and I was carrying everything in my head, appointments and ideas and to-do lists and meal plans and lesson plans and all of this stuff. And I just wasn't able to be proactive about things, and I found it so hard to predict what my day was going to be like. And one day when I was at my desk working, I had this moment of clarity. I realized that I didn't actually need more time. What I needed to do was to stop reinventing the wheel every single day. I wanted to regain control of my day, but not just one day, right? I wanted that to be something that would happen every day sustainably. And even more, I wanted a way to blend success and my role as a mom. And so when I was at work, I had this light bulb moment, which I've actually talked about before. I repeatedly would find myself so put together at work. I never missed client deadlines. I always got my work done in a high quality fashion. I knew what I had to do, and I would get it done in the designated time that I had. But I just wasn't able to keep up with things at home. Persistently, I would fall behind, not get things done, be exhausted. I just didn't feel productive the same way I would at work. So I wondered if I could take the things that were improving the way I would work, on my office type work, and whether I could apply those things as well in my personal life. And this is where my background as a PhD researcher actually really came to my rescue. Because, see, in the lab, we don't just try random approaches and then hope for the best. We actually create protocols. And those are step-by-step procedures that we have to document and that we come back to and try to repeat those steps again and see if we get the same results. We need to have consistent outcomes in order for us to be able to rely on the data that we get out of those experiments. So I thought, what if I applied this scientific approach to my own life as a mom? I took that core principle from the laboratory and I started really small and experimenting in my own personal life. I created a system for getting things done on my calendar, okay? And then I started to establish a morning and a bedtime protocol. And soon after that, I started to be really systematic about my daily and weekly planning. It became a ritual. And then eventually, I had systems for managing household tasks and meal planning and travel prep and all kinds of things. And here's what happened. The tasks that used to take me hours started taking minutes sometimes. Projects that weren't getting finished before at home started to move forward consistently. And really importantly, I started to reclaim that mental bandwidth for creative and more meaningful work that was energizing me. I could reallocate that mental freedom. So like I said before, systems aren't just for labs or businesses or consulting. This is how us high-achieving moms can make steady progress despite all of that beautiful chaos that is constantly around us. So let's get really clear on what I mean by system, because I think that word gets thrown around a lot. A system is a repeatable set of steps that automates decisions for a process, and it really streamlines your actions that you take for that process. And systems are really different than having this one-off plan, right? You can have a plan to get something done, but then once that task is done, that plan is essentially closed. You're done with it. You're probably never going to use it again. A system creates a self-sustaining loop that is continuously going to produce you results. So you create it once. Yes, you might have some refinements along the way, but those series of steps that you define will continue to work for you every time you use it. Now, at this point, it might sound really complicated or overwhelming to think about creating a system, but I want you to think of it this way. A system is going to create a pathway for you that makes you doing that task a lot easier, and it'll get you very intentionally from the start point to a point of completion without you having to stop and figure everything out from scratch every time you try to do that task. If you had to deconstruct a system, you're going to find three main parts. The first part is the inputs. So these are like triggers or information, sometimes materials and parameters even that you define that help you start the process. So for example, let's say meal planning. You're setting up a meal planning system. Your inputs could maybe be the dates and times at which you're going to have your meals, or maybe the specific diet that you are on, or maybe even your actual grocery list. Then the second part of a system is the process itself. all of the steps. So the process has a start point, and then it has all the steps in between, whether it's 3 steps or 7 steps or whatever, all the way to the last step. And these are clear actions that move you from start to finish. So continuing on with our meal planning example, you might have a process that includes the following steps: inventorying all of your ingredients, whether that's in your pantry and your fridge. Maybe it's choosing your family favorite recipes for breakfast and lunch and dinner. Another step might involve making sure the ingredients are consistent with a diet that you're on. And then you might even have a step for placing a grocery order and prepping and cooking the meals. And so then the third and final part is the outputs. So this is what you expect to see or have or hold after the entire system is completed. So you can think of it as like the finished product or the destination at the end of a process. So in our example with meal planning, the final product is maybe a grocery list that's consistent with the meal that you have set up for that specific day or time. Or it might actually be the completed meal on the dinner table. Not all systems are time dependent, but I would say that the best systems also include a very clear timing with it as to when the system should happen. Maybe the specific time, but also at what frequency, or if there's a certain trigger that leads you to then activate the system. As well as what are the criteria for you to establish that you have now completed or that the task is now done. Some of the key features that you want to have in systems are things like you want systems to be simple, sustainable, repeatable, that is maybe its primary function, and also other things that might be considered benefits like being scalable so you can use them regardless of the volume at the input stage, or even to be able to reapply the system in a different setting. And we're going to talk a lot more about the benefits of systems in our part 2 episode, but another thing that I want to point out is that systems are designed to work for you even on your worst days. Because let's be honest, as moms, we have plenty of those, right? I also want to point out that systems can come in many different formats, at least the way I think of them. So I consider routines a system because a routine is a set sequence of tasks. So for example, my morning routine is my system for getting ready for the day. So instead of waking up and trying to decide what needs to happen first, especially when I'm sleep deprived or haven't had my coffee yet, instead I have a set sequence, a routine that I do every morning, and it's done in the same order, the same cues, and it dramatically reduces the number of choices that I need to make even before my brain is fully online. So rituals are kind of like the same thing. They're like routines, but they're often triggered by something. So my family has a post-swimming ritual. After we're done swimming and we come home, my family knows to make sure that all of their wet stuff, towels and swimsuits, go on the drying rack. We do a quick scan to make sure that we didn't leave any wet stuff on the hardwood floors, and everyone goes and takes showers. Systems can also be visual or audio. For example, you might have color-coded planners or calendars. You can use visual cues. Sometimes that helps with when you're trying to get your kids to do chores. Or audio, you can have alarms and reminders that go off to help you remember to do certain things at certain times. And finally, something that's much more common these days is to see digital versions of systems. These can be software, apps, automations, notifications, or even workflows that you set up on your computer. So for example, I maintain an information management system. And basically, this is just a trusted place that every idea, task, commitment, anything I'm working on, information for that immediately gets captured into this management system. And in my case, it's a digital tool. I use Notion. And I do this because it really frees up a tremendous amount of mental bandwidth. And so instead of using my brain as this overworked and overqualified to-do list, instead I can use my brain towards more creative things and more impactful things. And I can leave simple tasks and scheduling things and administrative information in this information management system. So I hope you're getting a much clearer picture of what I mean by systems. I bet you're already using a lot of systems in your life and you may not have even realized it. I want to take a second to also point out what systems are not. Systems aren't a one-time to-do list, right? They are not a checklist that you follow and of things that you have to do. And then once they're done, it's something that you throw away and you never have to deal with. A system it can be a checklist. However, it has to be repeatable. And sometimes that system will evolve over time as your use for it expands or your experience using it expands. Systems are not a do-everything plan. That would be defeating the purpose of systems. Systems are supposed to be simple, and they're supposed to get you from point A to point B in as linear of a fashion as possible, ideally in 3 to 7 steps or so. As I mentioned before, systems are not supposed to be rigid. They can evolve over time, and they probably will if you are using them to improve your life in some way. Of course, I don't think that I should have to explain this too much, but you don't want systems to be a substitute for personal judgment. You don't want to outsource so fully to systems, just like we talk about AI, that you don't actually offer any discernment as to what you're putting in and what you're getting out. Systems basically provide you structure to get things done, but ultimately you're still the one that's going to have to decide your priorities, what you're going to do first, when you're going to do them, and whether those tasks align with your values or not. This can happen to us high-achieving women, but you really don't want to over-engineer your systems either. Because when you do that, you start to add unnecessary steps, and then the system basically starts to get clunky, which again defeats the purpose of a system. So you really want to keep it lean and simple. Okay, so far so good, but I'm sure you're also wondering, how do I even start creating systems? Well, that's where life planning comes in. See, systems don't exist in isolation. They are actually there and should support your life that you're trying to create. So in my life planning framework, we start with your vision and your values, and then we create a life plan that's aligned with what matters to you most, right? But then systems are the implementation tool. The systems are how we turn that life plan into something that's actionable in your daily life. So think of it this way. Your life plan is the destination and the overall route, right? I often talk about it like a GPS for your life. But the systems are the vehicle. It's the tool that's actually going to get you there. So without systems, even the most beautiful life plan that you have, it's going to just stay on paper. It's just going to be this dream. You actually need something like systems to be the backbone for your life plan. So if you're ready to envision that next chapter of your life, then I would love to work with you. Together, we can create a personalized life plan. And then we can find the right systems to power that vision of yours into your reality, where you can take reasonable action every day and make progress towards that vision. So you can start off by booking a free exploratory call today using the link in the show notes. We can see if we're a good fit. And we can also discuss how I can help you implement systems to really truly support your vision and your values. I look forward to hearing from you. So it's time to recap what we covered today. I defined what systems are in quite a bit of detail, but essentially a system is a kind of process that's repeatable. It consists of a series of steps that you repeat every time you run that system. Systems are designed to reduce all of that decision-making that you have to do for each of the steps required for a given task. And in that way, they really cut your mental load down. And at the same time, because you start standardizing things a little bit, your progress becomes predictable, and even your final output is something that you can produce reliably. And so my personal experience with systems, it was that it was a key component to allowing me to turn my vision into something that I could actually work on a daily basis. It was bridging that gap that I had of my ideal life that I had designed very intentionally with my life plan. It became that vehicle that would bring me down that roadmap on my life plan all the way to my vision. Now, I really love making episodes actionable, and so this time I'm going to assign a little bit of homework for you. How about doing a little bit of an audit in your life and seeing where some of the bottleneck points are? Where are you struggling? Where does it feel like you're constantly having to reinvent the wheel every time you work on a particular task? Maybe it's managing your inbox, or maybe it's scheduling. Some things are getting on your calendar and other things aren't. Perhaps it's budgeting for all of your family travel. Just think about, can that task or part of that task be standardized, batched, or simplified if you had a clear system? even implementing one small system or thinking about the steps in that system can really create a surprising ripple effect in your productivity and your peace of mind. And don't worry, I'm going to teach you how to build your own systems later in the Systems Explained series. But next, in part 2, I'm going to talk about what you regain once you implement systems. What are the benefits of having systems in your life? And I'm going to offer you clear examples of how I'm using them today in my ambitious mom life. The small step is how we're going to move from everything feeling chaotic all the time to slowly getting a handle on things. And your overwhelm, you're constantly feeling busy, you're doing things halfway but never finishing things, all of that is going to start to fade away. Okay, I'm Anoki Kapasi, and this is Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life. Thanks for listening, and I'm going to be back with the next episode, the part 2 installment of Systems Explained. I hope today's episode will help you create time and freedom to pursue something you love to do. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe and tell other purpose-driven mamas about it. Who knows? You might even make a new friend by sharing a tip. It's all free. By the way, it would be amazing to hear what you think about the show when you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. After all, my passion is to make this a great experience for you. I'll see you next week for another episode of Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life with Anoki Kapasi.